Live. We're live, everybody. Thanks for coming. If we can get your attention, that would be fantastic. Nice. Okay, it's been a minute. It feels like it's been quite a while since the last BTCVAN meetup. I know there's lots of other meetups that are going around in the city these days, which is great to see. There's coffee meetups in the morning on Mondays, which jump to different coffee shop businesses that accept Bitcoin in Vancouver, which is fantastic. Leo, who's here, he runs the Bitcoin devs, which if we're going more on the technical side, feel free to pop into that one. And then this one's kind of more of a social one that I host. People call me Fussler. Nice to meet you. There's some new faces in here, which is always good to see. This evening is, well, actually, first of all, it's been 5 months since we've done them. We try to do them roughly monthly is kind of the goal, which we've been doing for a few years now. I had a little baby 5 months ago, so things have been a little busy. Thank you very much. Hence the hiatus. It's been a while, so we're hoping to kick them off again. This is kind of the first one to kind of end off the year. Maybe we'll squeeze one in next month. We're not sure yet, so we'll figure that part out. Just want to say a quick thank you to sponsor, which is Bitcoin Well. So you may have seen this kind of rotating up here. Bitcoin Well at every meetup, they give me $100, and someone's going to win it. And what we do is, so you need a Bitcoin Well account first of all to win the money, right? So if you don't have one, you can go to scan this QR code. That's the raffle one. So the other one, if you don't have an account, you can scan that, go create one real quickly. It takes 2 minutes. And then the next one, once you've got your account, you can scan that and then just put your whatever nickname that you gave yourself there on Bitcoin Well, enter that into the Google Sheet. And then after Sean's done his presentation, we'll give away $100. Whoever wins that, we're going to go around the corner. There's an ATM behind the wall over here, and we do a cash voucher, and we buy, or you get to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin right away. So that's the scoop. So thank you to Bitcoin Well. And I think without further ado, we're just going to get cracking. So we've got Shone, who's going to join us. He's the CEO of LQwD, which is a Lightning company. And Lightning is a layer 2 solution. I'm sure he'll probably talk a little bit more about it, but it's a scaling. It's a layer that's built on top of the main Bitcoin layer, and it's to help Bitcoin scale so that we can go up to the counter like we are this evening and pay immediately without having to wait for that 10-minute block time, right? Because that doesn't scale too good. So without further ado, give it up for Shone. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. I have a clicker for that.
Perfect. Which way do we go?
That's on, and I'm going to get your presentation up right now.
Great. Thanks everyone. Happy to be here. So excited to be back in Vancouver. We've been traveling the world for Bitcoin Hong Kong, Amsterdam, for one of our team members. You know, the world has really changed over the last I've been in Bitcoin since 2012, really 2011. So, and we knew this day was coming, that we were going to see massive change, and we're going to get into why. You know, why Bitcoin is the trust protocol of the internet and why it matters, and understanding why it has value. It's not going to be a company pitch here. I'm tired of those. But we're one of the larger players on Lightning Network. We have 20 nodes in 20 countries. We have millions of dollars in Bitcoin. We deploy it actively on the Lightning Network. We support its growth aggressively, leveraging the public markets itself. And a little background on myself. My other company owns Netcoins. Those of you who know Netcoins. And one of Canada's largest crypto exchanges. I hate to say the word crypto, but they do have other cryptos in there. I'm no longer on the board, so I don't have a say in that. But we deal with reality. But that is a fully regulated exchange, and it took a lot of money, a lot of time to get to that point. We spent at least $2 million in becoming a regulated exchange and opening those doors around the world with regulators, and spending a lot of time in Japan and Singapore, and you name it, all over England, explaining Bitcoin, explaining what was coming to the world, and explaining it to regulators, and understanding that they can't avoid this. It's coming, right? This is the next phase of the internet. Switch hands here. So, when I first looked at Bitcoin, it was introduced to me. I wasn't one of these, I put it away and decided it wasn't something I want to look at, it's fake money. The way I looked at it, because I worked in internet tech for a long time, is that it's the next protocol for the extension of the internet. And we're going to get into why that's important. It's a trust protocol. And this is very important because it's going to change the way the world works, and change the way the world works in terms of corruption, corruption reduction, changing money, making hard money, but not just hard money. It'll be used in ways that will change society, just as TCP/IP and the communication protocol changed the way that we communicate around the world, and the open architecture and open source. In other words, good people are binding together to drive the darkness out and corrupt governments and give people an equal chance and a level playing field to do well in their lives. So this is a key thing. What is Bitcoin at the end of the day? We have TCP/IP. We all know what TCP/IP is. If you don't, that is the base layer communication protocol of the internet. You're using it today and all day. It's how the internet works. It was developed back in the 60s, and I met the team that actually developed that. They were very old, but amazing individuals. And HTTP, we all seen that, and that's the different protocols that make the internet work as it is. We come along, and we have a missing layer. We've had a missing layer since the 90s, and that's the ability to do trust. How do you create trust without a third party? So we know about that. And the payment protocols, of course, payment of money is really the first use case. And we're going to extend that payment protocol. We're going to send Bitcoin with Lightning Network. We're going to get into that a little more. So this is an important slide. And if you take away anything from tonight, this is the one you need to understand. So these first 7 layers, physical stack, application stack, this is called the OSI stack. This is just a name, big long name. And it represents the plumbing of the internet. Physical, that's your Wi-Fi. Application, those are your websites. All the stuff that was built over time and layered up over time to make the internet work the way we want it to work, including things like the DNS layer, which you don't know what that is, but that allows you to type in google.com instead of some IP address, some long series of numbers that you would have to know. So it made it useful. Bitcoin comes in there. By the way, the whole internet runs off of that stack. Bitcoin comes in there and solves for trust. Trust in the digital age. It extends the very OSI stack itself. And this is very important. So now we have something that we tried to do for 15 to 20 years, failed repeatedly. Bitcoin solved it. At its core is solve trust. And its value is starting to be seen. And its value is going to go beyond. And we're going to show why. So computational trust is mathematical, not political, non-institution. It is not beholden to anybody. It is a morally agnostic trust network. It doesn't care who you are, what you do in the world, you can use it. Sound familiar? That's the internet. So, back in 1999, the internet was worth, they have valued it, the brains that be valued internet at $180 billion. That's the value of the internet. It would take Yahoo, Microsoft to rebuild it. It would cost them that. That's what we thought it was worth. And some great economists thought it was worth nothing. By 2006 is an important number because that's when the iPhone came out. Internet suddenly became very, very useful. And we think the internet's worth $4 trillion, that's the estimate. By 2010, they estimate the internet is worth $20 trillion. Anybody here, what is the internet worth today? I'll wait a few seconds. Anybody know? Priceless. Now, on the GDP front, maybe 50 to 100 trillion. But imagine if the internet went down for a month. How would you survive? You used to get the internet over the phone, but you get the phone over the internet now, and everything runs on this architecture, that 7-layer OSI stack. So when we look at it from this perspective, what's the value of Bitcoin, the trust? What is the value of the trust layer of the internet? So we know the 7-layer stack of the internet is worth an unfathomable number, and it's grown over the last 30 years to become that. We finally solved the computational thing and a real discovery of Bitcoin itself. We really discovered how to do trust in the digital age. What's that worth? $2 trillion? Okay, that's the current market understanding of it. How quickly will it become 20 trillion? How quickly will it become 200 trillion as it sets the rails, the financial rails, money, and other trust applications in the digital age for the next 200 years? And things are happening far quicker than they used to. So back in the day, there's stories of engineers for Yahoo getting on a plane, going to Yahoo Japan to set up the directory and taking all the data and hard drives to plug it back in because you couldn't send the data over the wire. It was just simply too slow. And not everybody had mobile phones. We didn't all have computers, didn't have laptops. It wasn't ubiquitous. Now information travels very quickly. Time is significantly compressed. You're going to see an incredible amount of change over the next 5 years over the Bitcoin network, AI, all these things are coming together because information travels very quickly. So what is the value of Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is the internet. And everything we see here, everything we're working on here is really just a continuation of the revolution of the internet. I want to talk about value. I'm not going to get into all the math on here because I'm 2 beers in, but we have a thing I wrote up here called the Nakamoto effect, also known as the monetized network effect. For those of you who don't know what this is, if you haven't seen my paper, it's based off the Metcalfe's law. So Metcalfe's law is basically, if you have a mobile phone, but you're the only person with a mobile phone, okay, pretty cool device, but can't talk to anybody. But if 10 other people have it, suddenly it's more valuable. If 1,000 people have it, its value of that network goes way higher. If 1 million people have it, the value of the network goes higher, as you can see. Now what if you take Bitcoin as trust and apply it to Metcalfe's law? How quickly will it be adopted? This network is growing because of Metcalfe's law, but also I realized I really trust it. And the more people who stack bricks upon this fortress, the stronger the fortress is, the more people want to join that fortress because they realized it can't be manipulated by government. It is the source of truth. It is immutable from government. It is an extension of the internet itself. Now, I have this paper. It's an open source paper. Anybody's welcome to look at it, take it, use it as you want. It's MIT license. There's no restrictions whatsoever. And so ultimately it gets down to trust through transparency and computation, where the network handles everything about it. We're going to get into why this is really important from a social standpoint coming up. Now this part here I just want to touch on because we've seen a lot of stuff over the last 6 months about all these corporate treasury companies, everybody with an ice cream truck showing up, raising debt, buying Bitcoin, going public. We're a public company. This is my second public company, and the other one was successful, and this one is, we're doing fine. And one of the things that do matter is perhaps MNAV and all these different kind of things that we've seen out there are not so important unless you're a massive, like a MicroStrategy or a MetaPlanet tapping into the massive Japanese bond market. How does it make sense for a TSX or a local market to do that when you're getting hedge fund money and they will sell you down the river pretty quick? You get their money out and leave you hanging, and that so-called flywheel doesn't make sense. Treasury 2.0 is really about putting Bitcoin to work. How do we actually make it work? How do we do something with it that is beyond just a store of value? And this is really where we're going to get into. So 3 pillars of this, collateralization, yield generation, liquidity access. The key one there being yield generation. So ultimately, from a public company standpoint, or even a private company, you have Bitcoin underpinning your balance sheet. So one of the things we have at Liquid, LQwD, is that we have 252 Bitcoin on our balance sheet. And this actually is a value that underpins our share price. Because people are like, hey, their net asset value is $29 million. The company's worth $29 million based upon this Bitcoin price, and the share price might reflect that. The Lightning business, I get a bonus. And so this is really important for companies that are growing because you're growing with the growth of the network. The network effect itself of Bitcoin growing can grow your balance sheet, allowing you to raise more money. And you get the upside potential of Lightning Network, which is growing at exponential rates. And so you take a calculated bet. But the key is with our company, and I'm using our company as an example because I'm the founder and CEO for obvious reasons, is that we have no debt. our Bitcoin's unencumbered. So what does this mean for small companies that aren't doing sophisticated financings like MicroStrategy, totally different beast? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've created as a company, myself, a whole new metric system for Bitcoin Treasury 2.0. How do you put that Bitcoin to work? How do you actually calculate its value to the company, so you can calculate for your CFOs and your auditors and for your shareholders where it makes sense, where there's accretion, and it's actually done in a way that you don't have some promoter who's just simply taking a bunch of debt, buying a bunch of Bitcoin, blowing out of stock, and right now, as we see, getting killed in the market and the shareholders are none. That's not acceptable. So I'm not going to get into all the details here, but ultimately, it's our view. And by the way, this paper is, I'll get into that. This paper, there's another paper here we can get out there. It's on my profile and on X from GitHub. It's open source. You guys can use it however you like. And really, one of the things that we have in there, and one of the key components is called BNAV, Bitcoin NAV, Bitcoin Net Asset Value. What do you want to do with Bitcoin Net Asset Value? And everything underneath that falls into it, such as Lightning Net Asset Value for a Lightning Network company. How do we make money by turning over Lightning Network transactions? What do we do with it? Okay, we're gonna get a Lightning Network. There's some great people here about Lightning Network. Leo is here from Lightning Labs. So if you have super technical, he's in the back. If you have super technical questions about Lightning, he's your guy. How about give you corporate? No, I'm actually quite technical, but he is the guy and one of the core engineers for Lightning Labs. So Lightning Network allows you for internet native, it's an internet native payment rail. So how does it work? You have this base layer of Bitcoin. It takes about 10 minutes to process a transaction. Extremely secure, incredible amount of computational power backing it, but relatively slow. And so you actually take the high-speed payment layer and you put it to the edge. Call an edge node, Lightning Network, where it can handle millions and millions of transactions. It doesn't go back to a central blockchain. It's all peer-to-peer, and it works like the internet. That's how it works. And one of the key aspects of it is that you and I could have channels, open payment channels with each other. We could do 1 million transactions in the course of a few minutes, and we could settle that balance back to the main chain, and everyone's happy, or we can simply leave it open. So for those of you who are not familiar with Lightning Network, it consists of what we call nodes and channels. And a node is just a computer or a server somewhere in the world running the open source Lightning Network software. You can use Lightning Labs, you can use Blockstream. There's a few companies, Lightning Labs being a leader in the space, but it's there. Anyone can do this. And what you do is you open payment channels to other node operators. But in order to open a payment channel to another node operator, you must have Bitcoin on the channel. It's a requirement. Now, okay. Now just a little, hate to say a company plug, but this is what we do as a company. We have nodes all over the world, and they're all interconnected. And we route payments as they come in. And when we route payments, we forward it to the next node in the hop in the chain. So a transaction may come in, we forward it from one node to the next, and we get paid a few sats along the way for doing that. So we actually get paid for routing transactions, and we continue to stack Bitcoin and put it to work. So it's a high-speed network, and one of the things we like about it, so things like Solana, an example, it's an interesting tech. I'm not here to slag on Solana or some other tech, but it's really just a massive blockchain. Everything going back into one. So think about it like this. Lightning Network is like having a series of email servers all over the world, as opposed to having one giant email server that everybody uses, which is going to scale. This is designed the same way the internet is being designed, and is now hitting its inflection point, and it will be used for many things that are going around the world. Now, one of the key aspects of it, let's get back to what we talked about first. Bitcoin is an extension and continuation of the revolution of the internet. So what is status code 402? Payment required. So how many of you have been on a website, you look for something, you get a 404 error, page not found? Everybody's seen that, right? If you haven't, you probably should spend more time on the internet. but those are called response codes, and they have been around since the 90s. 89 on, and they are built into every web server and every web browser, and it tells the communication between what's happening in the web server and the web browser, what's going on here. Now, back in 96 and 97, something was put in there called 402, payment required. In other words, to access this code, to access the site, to do this service, you must have a payment. However, what was back then that could ever scale at the scale of the internet? Visa, MasterCard, Microsoft, some third party in the middle? Nothing. Nothing existed that could scale infinitely until the Lightning Network came along, which is a peer-to-peer network, is not constrained by central blockchain, has unlimited capacity and continue to grow at triple digits, and we'll have other currencies go across it. You may be multi-currency, maybe dollars, other things, but Bitcoin is still the backer across the network, and ultimately the network is backed by the hardest digital asset we've ever seen, Bitcoin. So this is very important, because now we can do a true open payment layer. So imagine this. I don't know how many of you guys have experienced payments, but if you ever want to enable payments for your company, MasterCard, Visa, you got to contact a company. You got to show who you are. You've got to go through all the hoops. They can look at the transactions. They can reverse the transactions. You got to get permission to use it. Lightning, 402, none of that. Anyone can use it. It is a morally agnostic trust network that handles high-speed payments for everyone around the world, and anyone can use it at any time, and you do not require permission from anybody. And it is growing at an astronomical rate. It is the internet. And we know how that is. The internet, it's going to continue to proliferate. And everything we're doing here and everything we're building out is a continuation of the revolution of the internet, which has brought knowledge to the world, changed how commerce is done. Now it's about to invert money, invert the financial system, invert the payment rails, change trust, how trust is done around the world. And it's coming, and it's a freight train that will not be stopped. Because a couple of things. When technology been around for 15 years, it's like it's always been there. So your iPhone, how long has it been around? A little less than 15 years, 15, 20 years. Can you imagine not having it? Android, it's impossible. Because in our minds, once something's been around for 15 years, my home planet's calling. It's all good. Thank you. Once something's been around 15 years, just like it's always been there, it's ubiquitous to society. We can't imagine life without it. It's just simply the way it is. Bitcoin has passed that mark. It's like it's always been there. The brand of Bitcoin, the network is so strong, it's fought through everything. There was even a time, and I remember this, that people were talking about shutting down the internet. The government was going to tax it. They were going to shut it down. They were going to regulate it. The senators, we had our own Senator Warrens back in the day who were adamant about how bad it was and all the things it shouldn't do. And of course, they got voted out. They died off. Laws changed, and eventually that technology continued to bleed through everything. It's unstoppable because technologies get adopted when they are 10x better than anything else. And the internet and Bitcoin is 100x better than anything else. And so you go from an old system, and certainly let's give an example for stocks, public company is a public company, you have a 3-day settlement. You make a trade, but there's all this huge back office. But using these kind of technologies now, the trade is the settlement. So the whole system's being inverted. Now Bitcoin just happens to be that hard asset between there, and we're layering other key things off of it with the Lightning Network. In other words, this last line here is very important. The internet finally has its own currency. Because when I was showing Bitcoin for the first time in 2011, and I came from an internet background, building a lot of stuff out. And so I had the privilege of going, well, of course we're going to have native digital money for the internet. Because I believed in the internet, believed in that 7-layer OSI stack. I wasn't some genius, I just happened to work in that space. And I got it. I didn't fight. I'm like, it makes sense. So some of the things it's going to go, where are we going to go with some of these aspects? So the AI machine payments. So this is interesting. We always talk about payments, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about Lightning Network, all these things that are out there for just people paying people, which makes a lot of sense. It's going to better people's lives. But what about AI, robotics, other kind of computational systems that need access to payments? They need to use payments for authentication. They need to use streaming money for stuff in real time. They're not going to use Visa. They're not going to use MasterCard. They can use a settlement that can send a microfraction of a Bitcoin, microfraction of a penny, for sake of understanding, to validate. and do different things with it. So the whole machine-to-machine payment economy is probably going to outclass the human economy by a far, far margin over time. And they never sleep, it never gets tired. We think trillion transactions is a lot. It'll probably be in the quadrillion transactions. The machines are paying machines to do all kinds of things around the world over time. And time is compressed. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out over the next 10 years, but that is the direction it is going. Okay, almost done. Thank you for hanging out so long here. So one of the aspects, I talk about this in my book here, and it involves Bitcoin, it involves trust, it involves the internet, and we use the internet to pass knowledge to countries, and when countries that get better electricity, they get internet from satellite, cell phones, and it's really changed their society. Well, one of the aspects we have, and it's a theory I have, it's called intellectual imperialism. It's like we as Canada, United States, first world countries, we strip mine intellectual capacity from developing nations by taking their best and brightest. Take the doctors, take their engineers, take their nurses, take their lawyers, take their leaders. And we feel so good about ourselves. And why do we do this? Well, we offer them a better life here. And they're going to go. And why would they go? Why wouldn't they leave? Because the countries that they're in are highly corrupt. They're highly, highly corrupt countries. If you go to the World Corruption Index, Canada's somewhere in the top 10. Finland's usually first. Small country. Somalia dead last, score of 8. A lot of the ex-Soviet Union countries right around the bottom, third. And if you're in those countries and you don't play ball, if you're not corrupt too, you're not going to be able to survive or get ahead or establish something. It's very depressing. So we have two problems. One, we've taken their best and brightest from these countries, and we're so proud of ourselves for doing it. But who have we left them with? Great leaders, great doctors, great engineers. Oh, we're so proud of what we've done here, but we haven't built our own internal strength as a country and developed them within. We've simply taken the best and brightest from other people. And the reason is they're going to come here because we're a less corrupt country and you can get ahead. But imagine, and currently to solve this problem over in all these different developing nations, as the World Bank likes to call it, and they'll be developing forever if they're under the World Bank because they will do nothing to pull them out of poverty, is they're going to be mired in that situation forever, and there's no real solution for it. But what if you actually had a technology for trust? Money, of course, but trust. The internet going through these nations over the course of a couple of generations, as opposed to being countries that are based on donations, they actually can rebuild internally over a couple of generations, reduce the corruption in the country, go up the corruption index score, and give their best and brightest and people less reason to leave, and create a meritocracy where they can succeed and a level playing field where they have a chance. I believe that Bitcoin, Lightning, all these things here that are extending the very capabilities of the internet or adding the trust profile for the internet is what's going to do that. And that is my real passion about this is, as we get older, as we go through life, we want to do something important. We want to be part of something important, and we are. But this is something which we could leave behind, and it will affect people. And it's not going to happen immediately, but we can recreate, we can actually put in motion things that allow these countries to change so that future generations will be able to stop the cycle of endless debt, endless corruption, endless wars, untrusting of the government, create insight into what is happening into their countries. And certainly, and if you can remove that corruption and raise them up, an entire nation could find a better path. And really, that's the hope for Bitcoin at the end of the day. And it is the internet, and it will get there, but we just have to keep pushing. So the future of trust. Bitcoin replaces trust gaps with mathematical certainty. Hooray for math. And global economy is realigning open protocols where transparency is the default. And transparency being a key word because 2008 financial crisis, one poor soul went to prison, nobody else went to prison because nobody could prove anything because all these backdoor deals and contracts that were in the back of some filing cabinet. But things that are done in here can keep Wall Street and institutions honest. And it's one of the reasons We send the United Nations into war-torn countries. When people are watching, the light is shone in the darkness, you're less likely to have a lot of problems. On that note, thank you very much.
Maybe some questions?
Ah, right, questions, right. Let me just have a sip of beer first.
There you go. Sweet. Thank you very much, sir. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Loved
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Does anyone have any any questions for Sean? Looks like we got someone with star right here on the front. Go ahead.
I understand how Bitcoin plays a role in trust and like stepping away from money printing. People have to vote to go to war, vote to raise taxes. Where does Lightning fit into that trust?
Well, that's all part of the money system being trained. I mean, certainly one of the things we have going on Lightning Network are two aspects. It could be used for authentication, it can be used for validation, it can be used for payments, and it will be used for a thing called Taproot digital assets, which you're probably familiar with. For those who are not, that means you could have stable coins and other government currencies going across it, whether you like them or not. There will be better rails. They'll be instant. And you can assign these things to land deeds and title deeds, and you can actually assign microtransactions on a network that'll make sense, and it'll dovetail its way into government. And at the end of the day, I don't have all the answers on exactly how it'll be used, because just like we didn't know how the internet will be used in certain ways, but a lot of smart people will realize they can do a lot of great things with it. And if we just give them free them up, unshackle them, give them the hope, and give them the tools. A lot of people, they're in that system, and they're gonna find a way to use it to make things better, because now there's an opportunity, right? It's the mother of necessity, as it were, mother of invention, etc. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It's gonna be, but really the key with Lightning is that it can handle the skill of the internet. Yeah. There's really no limit to it. The limit is the hardware, and that's kind of who cares.
The main interesting use case to tap through right now, I feel like I'm only really seeing with stable coins. Are you seeing?
Yeah, so his question is stable coins and Taproot digital assets. So let's just talk about that for a second. So Taproot digital assets is a way for you to have tokenized dollars, Tether, USDC, etc., going across the Lightning Network and having instantaneous payment. And there's a couple of aspects that are kind of interesting. So on one, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, this is not a judgment, this administration in the United States has figured out that with these banks, JP Morgan, USDC, Tether, they can issue their own tokens across the US dollar. And one of the key things that they're doing is they're buying US debt. Tether owns more US debt than South Korea. They have $113 billion in treasury bills. So America can continue to sell its debt and have that hegemony on the dollar and have last mile reach to every person around the world. But they need the Bitcoin network to do it with. And ultimately, because Vitala was talking about, they've used other networks and they simply just don't scale for the level that they want, and Bitcoin Lightning is designed for that. So things die over time. The enemy of the US dollar is not Bitcoin, it's bad policy. And but ultimately they'll find their way.
So Lightning sounds very cool, but I would imagine that fast settlement times come at a compromise. And so my question is, how much effort will it take to steal money using Lightning?
For mining?
Just like if someone pays with Lightning, and like with Bitcoin, you have to get half of the network. You have to own half of the network to rewrite the rules. But what about Lightning?
Yeah, I'm not. We keeping a close eye on security stuff. I've never heard of there's no real 51% attack on that network. You'd have to own a lot of the nodes and channels. Leo could probably talk a lot more on that technical aspect of it, but it's we understand the 51% attack on a layer 1 blockchain. The other one there is, if you connect to bad nodes, I don't really see that being an issue. I haven't seen anything about it. Doesn't mean it couldn't come up over time, and we'd have to work on it, but because it's an iterative process. But I don't have the same issue with a 51% attack as you would say Ethereum or Solana. I mean, Bitcoin's got so much hashing power, it doesn't matter. One aspect on Bitcoin that does matter, in Lightning, is getting enough Bitcoin on the Lightning network through the mining pools and the mempool. But ultimately, the value of what you can transact, because people still think in dollars, not everybody, but as Bitcoin continues to rise, the amount that the Lightning Network is processing and transacting goes up. So Lightning Network is really a liquidity-driven network. The more Bitcoin you have on it, the larger channels you have, the more connectivity. It works kind of like an abacus. And it goes around from hop to hop until it reaches its destination. And the Lightning Network works very similar to how the internet works. So you have your gossip protocols, and let's get into that real sec here. So when you're on the internet itself, as we today, you have that DNS routing thing where you know where Google's servers are. So your ISP, which is like Rogers, TELUS, etc., they have a routing nodes sitting in here in Vancouver, sitting across the country, and they have literally a map of IPs to websites. They have a list of the IPs of who owns what IP on which network, and then they have DNS stuff that actually translates it to something else. And what'll happen is you send a transaction, it'll go from hop to hop across the network until it finds its final home. Now, if you're another ISP, and you're up, say, and you have some technical problems and your network goes down, this routing map, you'll drop off the map. Now, if you get back up, you'll find your way back in the map within 30 minutes. Give or take, and you'll be part of the internet again. So it's not a guaranteed thing. So it's fluctuating. The Lightning Network works very similar with the gossip protocol, where it determines who has the cheapest routes, the fastest routes, the best routes, etc., most reliable, and the path of the transaction will try to find that. So very similar concepts, because it's borrowing off of what we learned of how to build the internet itself. But in terms of the tech stuff, yeah, I encourage you to talk to, on the security side, Leo would be a great person for you.
So I got into crypto about in 2021. All the content, all the conversations I have, it's mainly Bitcoin's always positioned as a store of value. I'm just curious more on your mindset shift in regards to maybe moving it to payments, because I feel like the convenience of stable coins are going to, maybe they work synergistically. I'm just curious how you kind of fit that together, because the mindset of people wanting to actually use their Bitcoin instead of just save it for, a better price in the future.
Yeah, it's still the birth of a new network, and there's a long way to grow. So, it's a store of value because it's outside of government control. It's, it's not tied to government inflation. The network itself is growing. We see it as the growth of the internet. Now, stablecoins aren't going to go away anytime soon. Dollar's not going to die tomorrow. It'll change over time, and that's okay. And so, Taproot Digital Assets, which is with stablecoins over Lightning, it's going to happen, and it is already starting to happen. So the Lightning Network is being used for stablecoins and being used in that kind of way. So, just as we have today, we have multi-currencies, multiple way to pay, and ultimately the best ways to pay become what goes forward. You're going to see that over time, but the system isn't going to change like tomorrow and just like all Bitcoin. It'll probably happen quicker than you think, and it really depends where you are in the world. Because if you're in some place where if you're in Turkey with the lira, it help you. You'd be down 98%. You'd be wiped out, right? So Bitcoin is still a store of value. Would you want to spend it? I don't know, but at some point it will probably can stabilize out. But it will provide the backing as the ultimate secure store of value, the ultimate treasury backing for the rest of things that are going on in the network, and that trust protocol with the massive amounts of computational hashing behind it to secure it. Very, very important going forward here. But how do you scale Bitcoin? Scale it the same way we scale the internet, that OSI stack we talked about. As needs come up, we build them out and continue to, and ultimately what you're going to see is, other technologies will come along and then we'll be used in different ways. Just as we have email protocols and file transfer protocols, and we're gonna continue to build it out. So, we're still early days, but accelerating very, very quickly.
Anyone else with questions? One in the back. One sec.
I have a question regarding liquid as both a Bitcoin treasury company and a Lightning service provider. I just asked ChatGPT what was the revenue generated from operating Lightning as a Lightning service provider. It says like last year it generated 5,500.
How many sats though?
Yeah, in Canadian dollar value.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
And then, but I'm wondering, like, I know that 5,000 doesn't even cover an employee's annual salary, probably a fraction of it, right?
No,
like,
not
how
at
is it adding value? I know it might be like a forward-looking strategy, but
Sure.
how does it actually add value to Liquid, since it's obviously a
So the way we
money
look at it is this. When you get into, and it's a Silicon Valley, it's a good question, by the way, it's a Silicon Valley approach. What you want to have is you want to have a core. So we have a lot of Bitcoin on our balance sheet, but you also want to be tied to something that has the potential upside that can, 10,000x and have the network effect for it. And the key, what you have to do over the period of time, where no one else is thinking about it, because if it was profitable and highly profitable, the majors would move in, it'd be too late, is you have to establish your flag, and you have to build out the tech, and you have to build all those things. You have to have a lot of faith in where it's going. So people say, hey, you're not making a lot of money. I don't care. I really don't. I've built these companies before that have, Netcoins are going to do $1 billion in transaction revenue, transaction volume. So I don't care about that. And so the reason is we don't care about it is because we need to be focused on speed, focus on how we can continue the routing and the build out, plant our flag, and then the growth of the network will carry us up faster than anything else. I'm dropping mints here. And there's some history to that. So I hate to use the word Amazon as an example, but it is a good example. Why did Amazon succeed? They started in 96, 95 when they were out there selling books. Why did they succeed? Well, a lot of reasons. But at the end of the day, they stayed upright. They kept building, and the growth of the internet carried them up, 100,000-fold faster than anything else possibly could. The network effect. We see the same thing, the network effect, the Nakamoto effect with Lightning Network, where what matters is forget all this immediate run to profitability. You see that from a few funds around here. They're all interested in traditional mining, and a bunch of old guys should retire. They don't get tech. And that's okay. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But in the tech world, it's the race to build out and have that explosive upside. So slowly, suddenly, all at once. And that's our path as a company. And one of the keys of the path for a company, I think, in tech is focus. So it's very tempting for a lot of companies when they raise a bunch of money and they go chase a bunch of different directions. But you need to stay focused to what you know is working and just become great at it and be known for it and just continue to build out. So, as a company, we're in great shape. We have no debt. We got cash in the bank. We got Bitcoin in the bank. And we got a moat around what we're doing on the Lightning Network that has a potential explosive upside and is growing at triple digits. And so we're very comfortable where we're at. We'd like to think of ourselves as one of the leaders in the space. And we're just going to keep trucking along. But it's a great question. Thank you. No problem.
So pretty much right now, the majority of stablecoins are like on the Ethereum network, something like 60 to 70%. How do you see Lightning sort of competing with that and maybe taking a percentage of that market share?
So Ethereum came out, and I mind Ethereum. I converted to Bitcoin back in the day. I don't dislike it. Ethereum kind of reminds me of the Netscape of our time, where it really just opened the doors to what could be done in the space. Excuse me, but ultimately died the death of 1,000 cuts, and they should never have moved from proof of stake to proof of work to proof of stake. Now they have all kinds of competitors lining up, and they're faster and they're better, and we'll see what happens. It's really a race to the bottom, but they'll do what they're going to do. I don't really care. I wish them well, actually, because it's a huge market, and I'm actually very interested in the tech that they're building, and because I'm a tech guy. But I think really when we talk about it, there's a reason why Tether, which is the largest stablecoin company in the world, probably the most profitable financial company in the world, with a team of 50 that made huge, I don't know how many billion they made. They moved to El Salvador, and they've come out and said, we're going to put Tether on Lightning Network because it's the only thing that will actually scale, because it's effectively architected like the internet. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff happen there. They're going to lead the way. They will be successful with it. I think a lot of other stable coins would see the same thing. Now there'll be other paths. I mean, you're not going to be just closed to one path. You know, it's a big market. You can't say it's winner. A lot of industries is this. And this goes back to the lady's question about why we're so focused on what we're going to do here. When you go out there, winner takes most. When you want to build, you build aggressively, you build focused, and you got to be out there, and you got to be not necessarily first, but you got to win, because the winner will take 80% of the market. A bunch of stragglers at the 20%, but you see it time and time again. You know, Microsoft beat out Apple, got 80% of the market. Google beat out Microsoft, took 80% of the search market. Unstoppable. Now, fight is over AI. And what are we doing here with? I think Lightning, with its being backed by the hardest digital asset known to man, and the brand and all that kind of stuff, will end up taking the lion's share, simply because winner takes most and it's backed by that hard digital asset. We'll see how it plays out, but it's a massive market, and yeah, they're starting to go across. They're just starting over the last stretch here. Yeah. It's early. Yeah, but Taproot Digital Edge is there, and I think there's another release coming up in December. But that is a Leo question. But they're rolling out quickly. Yeah, and I think so. Yeah. Now, when I say this kind of stuff here, guys, I come out as a tech person, Bitcoin believer. I'm also interested in other tech. I like to talk to people. What are you building? It's kind of cool, right? It's not here to slag one and do the other. This will work or won't work. I'm all in. I'm dogmatic about my position. No, I just pull stuff off of my history of why certain things have worked. Why has certain things been successful, and what matters, right? It doesn't mean there won't be, it's a massive market, and there's room for Ethereum. They'll work through what problems they have. We'll see. We want them to be successful too, right? We don't want failure. We want success, and we can key off that success. Now, some of the success that they have in Ethereum or other networks and not doing other things, some of those concepts may bleed themselves back into Bitcoin as another layer. We don't know. That's probably what will happen at some point. We'll see. But it'll evolve over time, and we need to just continue to have great minds push forward and continue to do great things, because we're opening society up to the next phase of what the internet is going to do. We've seen what the first phase of the internet has done to the world. Next phase is going to be even bigger. So, a final boss. The final boss is the finance. It's Wall Street and finance and banks. It won't go easily, but they will go.
So I've learned a lot today. I've never really known much about the Lightning Network. Very new to this whole realm. Very interesting. I work in commerce, specifically in like Shopify, large scale. Do you ever see in the near future where Lightning will be on a checkout page when I'm trying to buy some shoes? Is there any sort of integration like that you see would happen in the near future? We already got that. Do we? Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll probably be integration for Lightning Direct as well, but also as a back-end rail. So you got to think of things like the back-end rail lines of the internet. If Tether's going to use it as a back-end rail for sending, and others are going to use it for back-end rail. At some point, Visa and MasterCard, who want to have more than 50,000 transactions a second or whatever it is they do, they're going to embrace the network where it can do it, and they're going to try to figure out how they can do it. So it's going to be a very interesting time in the payments world, and ultimately it's going to be very exciting, right?
So I read your GitHub on Canadian stablecoins. I think this past week there was some announcements in the Canadian government and what they're doing there. What's your thoughts on what they've decided? And I mean, I'm also curious on. I understand the value of Tether and USDT for like cab drivers in Argentina and that whole idea. I'm not sure I understand the global appeal of having a CAD stablecoin, so I'm interested in your ideas on that too.
Yeah, so the Stablecoin Act. So what he's talking about, I wrote a thing called the Maple Act, and so we never discussed it publicly. I was invited by the TSX for a very private meeting with a couple of other key companies in their boardroom with the shadow finance minister for the Conservatives. And it was all about what can we do, and this is not public in the room, but it is now. They've been great. There you go. I see CLB all over me tomorrow. But anyways, we wrote this paper, and we brought Bitcoin Lightning in there as well. We talked about stablecoins. We talked about new payment, new architecture for the country, and why all these things matter. And the Canadian dollar will be used for its own payment stuff. We call it the Canadian peso, but ultimately it will be used for our goods and services and all of our resource type things we want to do. and we're part of the G7, so it's not going to have the reach of the U.S. dollar. It won't. It can't. U.S. has bases everywhere. They were the true victors after World War II, and this change in technology and the fact that they're embracing will allow them to kick that down the road, and they're also going to be able to kick their debt down the road because these private companies will keep buying their debt, even though other countries won't. And so we'll see where that goes. Like him or not, I think Donald Trump's the perfect person to be in there because when the U.S. does go bankrupt, he's been bankrupt so many times. He knows how to do it. Thank you. I actually haven't looked into it yet. We were tied up with crazy. It was a crazy week in the markets, of course. Public companies crazy with Bitcoin. I'm not even worried about Bitcoin. We've seen worse. I've seen it go from 10 to 1,000 back to 30 when it was just like, who cares? At its core, it is what it is. But I'll look into it a little more. But I think there's, I know we had some influence on it. Well, they're going to have to embrace it. And one of the reasons they're going to have to embrace it, a lot of stuff is happening from the SEC. No Clarity Gary, they're all gone. They didn't know what they were doing, right? And they didn't understand how it could actually help America and with its debt and its dollar and all these kinds of things. And so, and I've worked with a lot of regulators, and more than I care, lots, and on different levels. And so, once you crack that door open, a lot of good things are going to happen here. But Canada will follow what happens in the United States. But our claim to fame is here. We've had the first ATM. We've really Bitcoin friendly, the world's first Bitcoin ETF out of Canada. And Canada is respected for that. So it did help a long way to crack that door open. But let's face it, 80% of the world's money goes through New York. Right, and they are the superpower. And so when their SEC and their government steps in and says, yeah, this is how we're going to do it, everybody has cover, everybody can breathe because they're too scared to do it on their own. But when probably, yeah. There's a lot of stuff happening there. So Wall Street's loving it because a whole new market's open up to them. The money's flooding in. It's crazy. So it's going to be a really interesting time. I know for the Bitcoin purists, it's all about Bitcoin, and we hate the banks, and the U.S. government should crash and burn, and we should all go live in citadels, picking berries, singing kumbaya. But I really hope the U.S. government and the U.S. nation itself, our allies, continue to get back on track and be a voice of democracy and find their way through here, because the alternative is terrible. We see it around the world. So amen, and God bless them. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll call it there. Thank you very much. Awesome.